Hello, I'm A.D. Hobbs, Anthony David Hobbs, and this is going to be my review of Jaws 4. And, or technically it's called Jaws the Revenge, you know. Some sequels have a number at the end, some don't, and in this case both. We have Jaws, Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and then Jaws the Revenge. Anyway, well, what can I say about Jaws the Revenge that hasn't been said already? Well, I'll do my best. But before I do, just a little trivia about Jaws films in general. The first Jaws film I ever saw was Jaws 3, and I was almost 7. And I assumed that the first Jaws film was called Jaws 1, and then Jaws 2, and then Jaws 3. So, well, yeah, I just thought they knew there were going to be 3 of them right from the start. And at this point I didn't know there was a 4th one, I assumed there were only 3. And something else. I saw Jaws 3 first. So I assumed, that the shark in the first film wreaks havoc and then gets away, but they don't kill it. Then it eats a load of people in Jaws 2, but then gets away. Then it's in Jaws 3. Because of course I saw the last half hour of Jaws 3 the first time I saw it. So I didn't know there were 2 sharks, and I thought there was just the one. And I thought this shark was the same great white shark in Jaws 1 and Jaws 2. It's the same one, yeah. So and then it blew to bits at the end. So that's why I thought there wasn't a 4th one, because I thought if the great white shark has blown up, that's it. You can't do any more sequels. It's the end. That's the end of the whole saga. Yeah. An interesting hypothesis, but how wrong can you be? Yeah, I found out later that I was totally wrong. The next one I saw was the first one, Jaws, and the shark gets killed. And then I thought, okay, well maybe the one in the second one is the same one in the third one. No, wrong again. The second one gets killed. And in the third one, technically 2 get killed. So, no, it's a different shark each time. So that's... And then another one killed in the 4th one. So it's a different shark each time. So there's 2 in number 3. So that's a total of 5 great white sharks get killed. There's a bit of a shark massacre there. Oh dear. Anyway, just because the shark is dead doesn't mean they can't do a sequel. And that's why they did sequels. And I suppose the reason the shark dies at the end of Jaws 1 is because they didn't know there was going to be a sequel. When they made Jaws 2, they didn't know there was going to be a sequel, so they always kill it just in case there wasn't going to be a sequel. And, oh yes, a bit of visual aid here. This is a 1980s action figure called Sawtooth Shark. He's a battle beast. And he has these, as you can see, these sharp teeth here like that. He's blue, but I think he's a bit of a pun on a great white shark. So, if great whites were blue, this is what they look like. And if they were humanoid, you know. Anyway, he has a trident, like Poseidon, god of the sea. And he has fins on his armour, yeah. So he's aquatic. He has a very aquatic toy here, cool shark. Because before and after the Jaws films, the shark, the image of the shark, you know, terrifies everyone. There are other scary monsters in the sea, but I think the shark is the definitive one. Yeah, it's the one that strikes terror in anyone that goes near the sea. And he's here because I did have a toy of a great white shark when I was a boy, but it got destroyed by some dogs chewing it to bits. So this toy here is standing in for the toy shark I didn't have. There we go, he's Sawtooth Shark. And the toy great white shark I had, it was not official Jaws merchandise, but it didn't matter, it was good enough. And yes, it ate a lot of my toys when I was a kid, yeah, because I loved the Jaws films as a kid, yeah. And Jaws 3, which had terrible special effects, was really annoying because, of course, in the first 2 films, the shark looked more realistic than it did in number 3. And people don't like that. They feel cheated. They're like, no, no, no. Special effects are supposed to get better as time goes on, not worse. Well, Jaws 4, the special effects are much, much better. Big improvement, yeah. So that's good. Unfortunately, the story isn't that good. So, Jaws 3, bad special effects, good story. Jaws 4, the other way round. Bad story, good special effects. They have this state-of-the-art animatronic shark that swims through the water. Now, you see, in Jaws 1, 2 and 3, the puppet couldn't swim in one big thing, like past you, like that. So they had to edit it and cut a real shark swimming past like that, so that it looks like it's one and the same. Very well edited in Jaws 1, very well edited in Jaws 2. Not so well edited in Jaws 3. It's pretty obvious which one's the puppet and which one's the real shark, you know. But there's none of that in Jaws 4. No, it's always the puppet throughout the film. They never have a real shark stand in for the puppet. It's always because it can do just about everything a real shark can do. It can swim all in one big piece past the screen like that. So yes, very good special effects, very realistic. I only have one criticism of the shark in Jaws 4, and it's this: when a great white shark, it can its lip really high up, so you can see lots of gum there like that. The shark in Jaws 4 permanently has his gum on display like that. Which, it's to make it look more terrifying, but it's not very realistic. And it's a shame, because in Jaws 3, the main big shark it lifts its lip, and the lip goes down again like that, yeah. Whereas this one permanently has its lip up, so it looks a bit silly. But, oh yes, and something else, I suppose I have to say. Everyone criticises Jaws 4 because the shark roars at the end of the film. Which is very silly because, of course, sharks can't roar, but it's because it's in great pain. That's why it's making that noise. And I suppose the film is saying a great white can't really roar, but if it could, it would probably sound like that. And everyone criticises Jaws 4 for that, but in Jaws 3, the shark roars. The big mama shark roars. Okay, only very under her breath, sort of like that. Not very loud at all, but. And she raises her lip as she roars slightly. In other words, Jaws 3 was the first to come up with the silly idea that a shark can roar, not Jaws 4. Okay, Jaws the Revenge. I first saw it when I was 11, and you have to see the full set, so I wanted to see the fourth one. And I thought it was called Jaws the Revenge because the shark just happens by chance, by coincidence, to attack a Brody. So it looks like it's revenge, so just coincidentally happens to stumble on a Brody. Then I found out, when I'd seen it a few times, no, the shark has a vendetta, it wants revenge, and that's why it only attacks members of the Brody family. And I was like, oh, please, that's ridiculous, Oh, there's a bit of irony here for you. The uncut version of Jaws the Revenge, it's a fair bit of blood and gore, but I wouldn't recommend anyone under the age of 12 seeing it because it's a bit gory, But if you're a little kid, you might be foolish enough to think a great white would go for revenge. But if you're over 12, you'd have common sense enough to know that a shark would never do that. Sharks don't have revenge. So, irony. It's a bit too scary for anyone under 12, but anyone over 12 would have common sense enough to know that the idea of revenge is nonsense. So, yes, that's ironic. And yes, the great white shark does look realistic, and I think it did have wires in it. It wasn't totally radio controlled, but just whenever the wires are out of shot, And the great whites never go to the Bahamas. That's made very clear. So there's never been a great white in the Bahamas ever, But this one does, because that's how determined it wants revenge, And there's just one problem though. Great whites do not go for revenge, but even if they did, this is a different great white shark. He didn't witness any of the events in 1, 2 and 3. So how could he possibly want revenge for events that he hasn't seen? So that's another reason why it's so ridiculous, And how does he know the Brody family has gone to the Bahamas? Does he have some sort of psychic power that he knows they're there? Does Ellen Brody have some sort of psychic power that she knows when the shark's coming, And, oh yes, in this one they put a tracking device on that they attach to its side so that they know when it's coming, but not that helps. When it does come, Michael Brody just happens to be in the water when it's coming. How did the shark know to come and attack at the precise moment when he was in the water? It didn't come when he was in a boat or something. Yeah, it's very silly. So, in other words, Jaws 3 disappointed some fans, and Universal wanted to make up for this with a much better film, number 4. Ironically, number 4 was far worse, A bit like Superman 4 was supposed to be the improvement on number 3. It was much worse. Alien 4 was meant to be the big improvement on number 3. That was much worse. So, number 4, not really a very good number for sequels. Oh dear. But Jaws 4, it's disappointing the first time you see it because you think it's going to be really good, like the definitive one, the big improvement on number 3, and it's much worse. The bits when the shark attacks are quite impressive, but the bits in between are very boring, Lorraine Gary, the actress who plays Ellen Brody, returns. You know, so it's basically saying we have some returning members of the cast from the originals. This is going to be as good as 1 and 2. It isn't. You know, it's just silly. You know. Oh, and a bit of philosophy here. All the Jaws fans say it's silly, the idea of a movie when a shark comes for revenge, but didn't it do that in the other ones? Well, just think about this for a moment. Jaws attacks people in Jaws 1, then in Jaws 2, of all the places a great white shark attacks, it's Amity Island, as if he's after the Brodies again. Then, 2 of the Brodies go and live in Florida, SeaWorld and Jaws 3, a great white. 2 great whites attack them there as well. Is this because he wanted revenge in those ones as well? You know, but nobody criticised 2 and 3 for that. Well, you could think of it like that, or you could think, no, the shark doesn't want revenge in Jaws 2 and Jaws 3 because he attacks people in general, not just he doesn't just attempt to attack Brodies, yeah. And but in Jaws 4, it's supposed to be revenge. The tagline is, "This time it's personal." However, the great white shark does attack a lady sitting on a banana boat that's not a member of the Brody family. So you could say it's realistic, it did kill someone that is not a Brody. Or you could say that's only because he was after Ellen Brody's granddaughter. He just happened to bite her by mistake. So, and oh yes, and a lot of fans criticise Jaws 4 because that bit when it stands on its tail in the water, you know. Great white sharks can leap out of the water. The reason they do this is because their favourite food, sea lions, sometimes sea lions leap up out of the water to avoid getting eaten. But sharks have, evolved to combat this problem. They also can leap and grab a sea lion like that. They can do that. They can physically, their entire body, leap out of the water. They can't, however, stand on their tail in the water. No, they can't do that. And at the end of Jaws: The Revenge, the shark eats the black man who does a Jamaican accent, called Jake, eats him up, pulls him in, and in the original cut, he's dead. But in the second cut, the final cut, he's still alive, even though he's been eaten by the shark. And then the shark explodes. How it explodes is never specified. It didn't eat anything explosive, but it explodes after being impaled by a sharp bit of wood. Okay, even if it did explode, wouldn't the man it's just eaten be dead? But no, he comes out perfectly alright, and it's as if the makers are taking the mick, you know, they're trying to make this even more unrealistic, if that's even possible. So I suppose Jaws: The Revenge is good for making fun of, but it's not very realistic at all. And it's sort of an insult, really, because the black man that dies is called Jake, and Michael Brody is devastated to see him die and shouts, "Jake!" Like really dramatic, over the top, like, "Oh no, my best friend is dead." And then 2 minutes later he's perfectly alright. So, bit of a pointless death scene, really. That's rather insulting. You know, you feel cheated after something like that happens. But in the cut that I was familiar with, the shark is impaled by a big bit of wood, the end of the boat. The front of the boat breaks off because of the weight, and then we see it die. We know it's dead because the heartbeat tracker thing stops making a noise, so we know it's definitely dead. That was quite unrealistic and over the top, but more realistic than it exploding for no apparent reason. And I get the reason the shark wants revenge is because they have to add new twists to a sequel, something you haven't seen before. Yes, but it needs to be realistic. Yeah. Oh, and in Jaws 1, 2 and 3, we don't see the shark properly for the first half of the film, we just see glimpses of it. We don't have that in this one. No, we see the shark in all its glory right throughout the film. I suppose because they were trying to make it a little different. And why is Michael Caine in Jaws: The Revenge? He's called Hoagie. Now, Hoagie, it might be a nickname in America, it might be a nickname in the Bahamas. It's not a nickname in Britain. I know, I've lived in Britain all my life. It is not a nickname. Why is a British guy got the nickname Hoagie? That's totally ridiculous. And I've nothing against Michael Caine, it's just he looks so out of place in a Jaws movie. It just doesn't make sense. But he openly admitted once in an interview the reason he did Jaws: The Revenge was because they paid him so much money and he got a holiday in the Bahamas. So, you know, he was very honest. He didn't think it would do very well, but he agreed to do it because of the benefits, you know. And, oh yes, something else. when Ellen Brody is very sad because her other son has been killed by the shark in Amity Island, so Michael says, "Come with us to the Bahamas. There won't be a great white there. There's never been a great white in the Bahamas ever. You'll be perfectly safe." Now that's true. There's never been a great white registered in the Bahamas. You still get sharks there, though. You're not perfectly safe in the Bahamas. You do get other kinds of sharks there. What's this thing that you'll definitely be safe? Michael Brody almost killed by a shark in Jaws 1, almost killed again in Jaws 2. In Jaws 3, a great white smashes up the place where he works. And in Jaws 4, he's a scientist that studies big underwater sea snails. After all those attacks in the previous films, wouldn't that be off-putting? Wouldn't that put you off wanting to work underwater in the sea? But no. I suppose because it has to feel like a Jaws film, so it has to have Brody characters in. Would it have worked just as well with totally different characters? Well, it would have been more realistic, If I was attacked by a shark like that, there's no way I'd want to work underwater, but you just go with it. So Jaws 4, Jaws the Revenge, it's a silly idea for revenge, but the animatronic shark is quite impressive, so I'll give it credit for that. But the characters are bland and underdeveloped. And the sad thing is, this was supposed to be the one that makes Jaws cool again, puts it back on the map. But because it was so awful, no more sequels were done after this one. And one last philosophical thought. Should they do a Jaws sequel now? If it was a really good sequel, would that work? Well, the thing is, the Jaws films were films of their time. They worked in the 70s, worked in the 80s, or one of them almost worked in the 80s. But the great white shark is a very rare and endangered animal, I don't think that story would work now. Nowadays, with all these environmental activists saying, "No, how dare you kill a really rare animal? That's terrible." You wouldn't be a hero if you killed a very rare endangered animal now. So no, killing a great white, that worked in the 70s. But nowadays, people don't see a great white as a monster. They see it as an endangered animal, and we must look after the animals on our planet. So I don't think a Jaws movie would work so much now, no. So I think they should call it a day and say 4 Jaws films were quite enough. Okay, thanks very much. Goodbye from me, and goodbye from the little stand-in shark here. And take care.